Welcome to Carry the Mat, where we pursue meaning in life, legacy, and leadership. Join us as we seek to learn some of life's most difficult yet valuable hard-earned lessons from men and women who have experienced obstacles and victories firsthand, striving to serve one another based on our unique, God-given abilities, not interested in merely talking about it, but determined to be about it. If that sounds like you, then let's carry the mat together. Every man dies, but not every man truly lives. Now to your hosts, Ben Brandenburg and Daniel Moss. This is Carry the Mat.
Welcome back, guys. It's been a brief hiatus, just kicking off summer. We've been just living, man. Just there's been a lot going on, just with our families and
couple beach trips.
Yeah, it's just been busy times. But we're grateful today to have Jake Sapp today from Peach State Lite, and we're going to get into Jake's upbringing in Georgia and kind of set the stage for their product, Peach State Lite, which I haven't tried. Daniel did toss me.
I've got some at the house.
Daniel tossed me at his place, and I've got it in my fridge, and I'm saving it for.
John Gamis is a hell of a promoter.
Yeah, John Gamis is the king. He's running our sales down below the gnat line for sure.
Yeah,
guy catches redfish and drinks Peach State Lite. He's a good dude.
That's right.
Yeah. But we were connected to Jake through our good friend Derek Chitwood. If you haven't heard Derek's podcast, he was episode 2 of Carry the Mat, and Derek, it seems like he knows everybody. It seems like every guest we've had is somehow connected to Chitwood. So we're grateful for him. He's a good friend, and he mentioned Jake and what Jake's done in the community. He said he was a good guy. So we're looking forward to, we're getting to know Jake. This is like, we haven't even talked. So this will be, we're all learning about each other, and we'll just kind of kick this conversation off. And we're just thankful to have you, Jake. Jake, welcome in. Welcome to Carry the Mat.
Yeah, Daniel, Ben, thank you guys both for having me. Texted me a couple weeks ago. We started talking. I was excited because I've listened to your podcast some already. Kind of kept up with some of the stories, knew some of the faces on the podcast, so I was honored to get asked to be a part of it. So I'm excited for today.
Yeah, it's been a little. It's, you know, we've gone from Brandon Boykin to you. You know, it's like, I know you like, we have people that are stars like you, and then we have guys like Brandon Boykin that nobody's heard of.
So, right, yeah.
No, it's been a wide gamut. It will continue to be, but ultimately, we're just trying to have conversations with like-minded people that are doing good for the community, but also just helping others. We'll talk about from a philanthropic standpoint, which you guys are involved in too. But if you will, just kind of set the stage for us and tell us a little bit about you growing up in the Athens area. I know you're from Madison County, but tell us about coming up in Georgia, and just obviously your product is tied to the state, but just talk to us about growing up in Georgia and just your upbringing, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I'd love to. I am very much a product of Northeast Georgia. Lived here I'm turning 32 in a couple weeks, but so my 31 and 11 months of my life, 30 of them have been here in the state, in Athens. So I'm partial to this area for sure. But yeah, like you said, I grew up in Athens. I went to Madison County Schools just north of here. Kind of grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. My grandfather started a body shop on the north end of town that still exists today, that I still actually work at. And he started that in 1972, and my family's had roots here ever since. My mom, her father was a famous teacher in Madison County. Everybody called him Doc. So I've always been tied between two counties of Clark and Madison County, and I'm really have pride to be from both. And so that's kind of where I started. Had a great, childhood. I'm one of 4. I'm the baby of 4. My 3 siblings and their spouses are still some of my favorite people in the world. We just went on vacation, our entire family, my wife and then my brothers and my sister and their spouses and all their kids, and we're all still very close. All love each other very much. And so grew up, had a great childhood, went to the University of Georgia for my education. So I am a dog through and through. I see you've got the Braves jersey on. I always tell people like it's 1A and 1B for me. Probably 1A is Dogs, 1B is Braves, and then everything else is just icing if they're good. Otherwise, it doesn't affect my sleep, but those two teams certainly
Yeah.
can. Uh,
Yeah, Spencer
so,
Spencer Strider had 11 strikeouts last night. And
yeah.
you guys have the stash going. Y'all both have the stash. I feel left out. I feel like I need to.
Oh, yeah, we got the Strider
Yeah.
stash there and ready. Remind me when we get to it, when we get further down. I have a good Spencer Strider and Peach State Lite story already, so I'll be excited. We'll talk about that when we start talking Braves baseball. So yeah, I grew up in the area. I lived in Columbia, South Carolina, right when I graduated college for a year. That was enough for me.
Was that pretty hot?
Although, what's that?
I said, was that pretty hot?
Yes, I mean, there's no heat like Columbia, South Carolina heat. And I was
No.
actually working for a commercial landscape company at the time, so being on the ground, um, it just, I learned the lesson pretty quickly that Athens summers aren't nearly as hot as they could be. So, had a good year there, learned a lot, made some really great friends, but just was really ready to get back to the area pretty quickly. And that's kind of where my start as being, I think, a good community member happened. I got involved. In college, I was an employee at Extra Special People, or ESP. I was always a summer camp counselor. It was a great summer job, just to stay in town, have fun with friends, work 8 to 5, then get off and, have some beer money to go have fun. Did that through college, graduated with an agriculture business degree, moved to South Carolina. I come back, I was kind of just waiting around, not really knowing what I wanted to do. And there was a position open at ESP for a program coordinator at the time. So when I was hired full-time, I was the third full-time hire at ESP. And that was back in 2000 and I guess 15. And so I think a lot of listeners, and I'm sure you two in particular, just know the behemoth of a nonprofit and a great organization ESP has become in the 9 years since. But yeah, I was the third full-time hire, which was a lot of fun. I did that for 8 years. I was part of ESP. So when I ended, I was the program director at ESP and love that program still so much. It's still one of the most fundamentally important institutions of my life and who I am and the things I value now. I learned at that organization. But I started kind of looking around and my family had a need. My family owns, like I said, the body shop. My uncle was kind of slowing down. He works about 3 days a week, so they just needed some extra office work. They needed somebody to help manage the business. And I was looking to for a new challenge and to have the experience of working alongside my father. And so I moved over in February of 22 and have been at Modern Body Shop since then. But what happened is I'm working at Modern Body Shop, and it's a great job. It is a 50-year-old business. And so 50-year-old businesses, they don't feel quite as, even though they came from a heart of entrepreneurship, they don't feel quite as entrepreneurial now. They're just really good, successful businesses that are kind of, you check in, you know what you have to do, and you get it done. But that left a lot of room for creativity. And the hours, I went from working, nonprofit hours where you're always on, always ready to work, always there for the cause, to working for a established business where I kind of clicked out at 5 p.m. and was done. And so I got creative. My juices started flowing, and that's kind of what kind of got me into this Peach State Lite business and all that's going on with that now too. So right now I'm kind of juggling with 2 jobs and working through both. And so that's kind of where we are now. I know that was kind of a fast track, but that's kind of where we got from A to maybe where we are right now, and I'll call it W, A to W. Yeah, I mean, this time last year, it's really interesting. We hadn't even put our beer in a can yet. So this time last year, my partner at Stillfire, Aaron Biscus, he sent me some photos of I kind of worked through our logo and what I wanted the can and the vision to be, and I finally got the label and what the can was actually going to look at. So Peach State Lite really has only been in existence for about 11 months at this point. So we are a very green company, and we've really been in stores since late August of 2022.
Y'all's branding is cool, including the 96 Olympics logo hat you got on. We're still looking for some sponsorships on Carry the Mat. We need a backdrop update. We need
Okay.
we need a few things. I got the Old Pal shirt on today. My buddy Hunt Rebel just bought the Old Pal, so we'll have to get
Hunt's
with
actually at Old Pal, so you can buy it at Old Pal. And Hunt is actually a friend of mine as well. We've done some philanthropy with them. We've donated some beer for their Shell Fest for their Shell to Shore organization, and he's definitely one of the most uniquely cool guys in town. I mean, he's a good part of the community for sure.
Mayor of Normal Town,
So,
for sure.
Yeah, I would say so.
You're Northeast Georgia, man. How'd you get connected with John Gaines? I know he works in the gas station line. But how did y'all cross paths?
Yeah, John's one of those guys. When I made the brand and kind of envisioned the brand, you think about it, and you think about a guy who, I think he went to Valdosta State. Did he go to Valdosta State?
Yeah.
So, all right, here's a guy who goes to Valdosta State. He lives in St. Mary's, Georgia. He works for a line of C stores, the most successful convenience stores in the country. I think Circle K is the biggest in the entire country. And you think, he does chartered fishing trips in his free time, and he is the exact person who I want to drink Peach State Lite. I mean, I don't know what comes more Georgia than John Gaines. And so he reached out through social media. He just was like, man, I love what you're doing. I like your vision. Let me know if I can help. And it's dangerous if somebody's going to offer me to help, because I'll take them up on it. And so I called him and we started talking. And he actually, starting at the end of this month, we'll be in about 55 Circle Ks in the state. Thanks to John Gaines. John Gaines introduced me to their beer category manager in Jacksonville, Florida. We drove down to Jacksonville, and so now one of our biggest partners in partnerships that's about to start is because of John Gaines and me just started talking to each other through Instagram. And so he's somebody I'm very grateful for, and I think is a really great dude.
Yeah, dude, that's not surprising. John's awesome, and he's all about your product, man, and y'all's vision. He talks very, very highly of y'all. And I mean, that's how I found out about y'all, was through John.
That's
I was down and he cracked open a Peach State Light. I was like, what the heck is that?
Yeah, and I mean, those are the type of people, and what I've really realized, it's with such a small, growing business, it's guys like John, it's people who kind of are seeing kind of the vision early, are the ones who are putting us on to other people and getting us other opportunities and getting our faces and our cans in front of people. And so it's been really cool to identify those people. And they kind of come from all over. They come from all over the state, the people who are kind of getting it a little quicker, and people whose eyes are just peeled for this type of stuff. And so I've been really grateful for John's friendship and kind of what it's meant for the brand so far.
Daniel worked at Tommy Smith Chevron. So it sounds like we got the body shop, we got Circle K, we got Tommy Smith Chevron. So we got a lot of garage back.
Yeah, oh yeah, it was a great college job, man. I enjoyed it.
Good place to have a beer.
Right.
That's awesome.
You mentioned just being drawn to Northeast Georgia and that heat in Columbia. We're both from Augusta, and we talk about that, just being drawn to. It seems like it's a few degrees, but it makes a huge difference. I mean, even just being in Oconee or Clark, the seasonal changes that you experience there. And I guess, I'm looking out the window at pine trees. There's tons of pines. We're over here on the lake right now, towards Clarks Hill.
Nice.
and it's all pine trees. But Northeast Georgia, you get a little bit more variety and color in the fall. But just being y'all's roots tied to the state, Peach State Lite, how much long term do you see it being just a Georgia thing, or do you see it being from a distribution channel standpoint? You'd love to open up that market, and maybe there's demand in other areas that aren't necessarily Georgia. I think from a branding standpoint, you guys talk about the opportunities there of growth, and maybe seeing the bit long term being even outside the state. Is that something that you guys would obviously welcome?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, kind of the whole vision of Peach State Lite is this regional beer. So back in 2020, I took a sabbatical from my time at ESP. That's a really cool thing that the organization does. When you get 5 years of service, they're going to give you 3 weeks and really encourage you to go do some self-development, spend time somewhere else, away from work, completely disconnected. People are covering for you. And so I had earned my 5 years in 2020, and it was the summer of 2020. So we're at the height of the pandemic. We had just made it through summer camp. We made a pretty difficult decision and found a way to safely do summer camp for, 200 campers whose isolation and loneliness is, for someone with a developmental disability, is far more severe than for a typically developing person. So we find this way to do 6 different mini camps across the region, limit it to 30 people total, so we can kind of follow, health guidelines. We're all masked, we're tested all the time, constantly, and it was a really successful summer. But it was stressful, and one of the most stressful summers I've ever gone through as a program director. So that sabbatical after the end of summer camp was hard earned, and I was excited to take some time off work. And so the month of August of 2020, I put a camper shell on the back of my Ram 1500. I took my Boykin Spaniel and drove out for the American West.
We both had. We'll talk about that. We'll come back to the Boykin. Keep going. I'm sorry.
Y'all have Boykins as well?
Well, rest in peace. I had one till September, but
we can nerd out about those later. So anyway, we go across to the American West. We're driving all over the country. I have Goose. My wife flies out for about 2 weeks. I ended up taking a whole month. My wife is out there for about 2 weeks. For the rest of the time, it's just me and the dog and kind of the open road. I really was trying to kind of live out a John Steinbeck book and just do the whole thing, and made it as far as Glacier, Montana.
Good.
Yeah, we drove a lot. So along the way, I was stopping at these places that had these very cool regional light beers. I ran through the Illinois area, and you have Old Style, and you run down around Texas, and you have Lone Star beer, and you have out west there's stuff like Rainier beer, which is more towards Seattle, and then on previous trips I started thinking about Natty Boh in Baltimore or Narragansett that's up in the Northeast. I started thinking about these really cool legacy light beers, and so kind of an alternative to a Bud Light or a Miller Lite or a Coors Light. And so I kind of just chewed on it. I like the idea, and fast forward to 2022, start this new job, have more time have more of an emotional bandwidth to be creative, and all those ideas just come rushing back, and start looking. It's like, Georgia, we're a state, we're firm in the Bible Belt. During the beer producing process in the 1800s, we don't really have the right formation or the right equipment to be able to keep beer cold to make it the right way. So beer was never the popularity that it was in other regions of the country. And so to me, that was a hole that we could fill. And so I wanted it to be something so obvious, it just slapped you in the face. And so me and my partner, we checked the trademark for Peach State Lite. It had never been used, so we went ahead and filed it. Worked on what we wanted it to taste like. With a brewmaster, came up with what it's going to taste like, and we've been canning it, like I said, for about 11 months. And yeah, really the heart of it is, this is a light beer, this is easy to drink, and it's a local alternative for somebody who likes that style of beer. And this one has more flavor, I will say. It is tastier than a Miller Lite or a Bud Light. But someone who likes I call them a volume beer. You're on the boat, you're at the golf course. You don't want to just drink one or two. You want to drink 4 or 5, and this is a good beer for that. And so that's kind of what we came up with and made it obvious. So I brought a can. And so Peach State Lite is everything that Georgia is. That's obviously the brown thrasher, 13 stars. 1788, that's when Georgia was ratified as a state. So all these cool legacy beers had these really old dates they could throw on their can. I was like, I can't put 2022 on a can. I don't want to lie either. And so 1788 is what I came up with. Lone Star is like the national beer of Texas. I was like, what can I just put on there so people know this is just our beer? And I was like, I can't call it the official beer. I'm sure you have to go through some paperwork, but you can put unofficial on anything. And so we went with that. And then my favorite aspect of the can, I was at work, I was at the body shop, and I had a friend who's from North Carolina call me because he knows I grew up here. He knows a lot of my friends are still in the area. And he's like, hey, we had a tree fall down in our yard. I need a good tree guy. I was like, yeah, no problem. Call my buddy Seth. And I just shot him Seth's number. And so during that process, it was during the process of building out this can and what I wanted to look like. And so it hit me. And that's why if you look at our can, you can see my name and number is on the can. Yeah. And I thought that's a very Georgia thing of just like, oh, I know a guy who can be your tree guy, or I know a guy who runs a body shop, or I know a guy who has a good beer. And so we threw my name and number on the can, and I just wanted to be accessible so people could talk to the beer man if they wanted to talk to the beer man.
Is that your real number?
So I have 2 phones now. That was my wife's advice, and she's a wise woman. So I got a second phone number, and I keep it with me most of the time and get some very interesting calls and texts. The later in the evening, the more interesting the calls or texts get when people have had a few of them. But it's been great. I mean, I've gotten into markets I wouldn't have gotten into before because people call and they know it, they can find out the information. Georgia's own Cole Swindell actually texted me a photo of him drinking it one time, which I thought was really cool. So it's been great for marketing, and I think it's true to kind of what we want the brand to be about is just kind of for Georgia, by Georgia. So I say all that because you talk about, can it be anywhere else in the country? And I think so. Because you can go to a store and buy Lone Star and say, I'm not having barbecue today. I want to drink what the Texans drinking. I hope somebody up in New York City one day is saying, what are those rednecks out in Georgia drink? And they go to a bar, and they get a Peach State Lite, and they kind of get to feel what we feel like here in our home state and gives them a taste of what we're doing. And so that's kind of so yes, I hope that eventually it will be distributed to other states and let other people around the state experience what Georgians are drinking.
You mentioned that just the fact that you can't get it everywhere almost makes it more coveted in a way. I remember when Yuengling, you could only get Yuengling, I guess growing up, you could get it in Carolina. I mean, growing up in Augusta, it's right across the river. And even in college, they used to send pledges over to Carolina to get Yuengling just because it's not that, I mean, Yuengling's solid, but it's not like, it's like the fact that you couldn't get it
makes you want more.
Yeah, same thing. And your dad told stories about your uncles driving out west, and Coors, you couldn't get Coors back in the day in the Southeast, especially, definitely not in Georgia. And so they'd come back with a trunk full of Coors Light, and everybody, they'd be smuggling Coors Light, and everybody be paying high Coors Light just because it was something cool. And, I mean, look at the bourbon scene. I mean, it's just because, they made 12 barrels of this, so therefore it's more coveted. It's the same thing with the beer category. So the fact that you're able to find that niche and stay small, I think that's good for y'all. But I think from a branding standpoint, y'all done a great job. Me not being as familiar with the product, but seeing it, just my awareness of it before I met you, I think it's a cool can. I mean, that's where you start, right? I mean, that Unofficial Beer of Georgia. I think that's brilliant. I'm a branding marketing guy, and just like you, I'm always thinking. And same thing with Derek. I mean, he talked a lot about when he started Peach State Pride. I mean, about the fact that hey, Carolina's got this crescent moon thing that's on everything. Georgia really didn't have that, and so just thinking about that that demand of something that's native, people liking to show off where they're from. I think that's smart.
Yeah.
Smart play by y'all to capture that and do it in a way that captures the look, feel, and the vibe of Georgians. I think that's something people are going to continue to get behind. So that's really sweet.
Yeah, and I think state pride is at a pretty all-time high. The Dogs are winning, the Braves are winning. People are flooding into the state from all over the country because they have good economic and good job opportunities. I mean, it's a thriving state right now. And so I think this is a great time to have something for people who are just proud to be from where we're from. And so it's been fun to kind of see people engage with that and kind of agree with what we're doing. And so, and you can see that. I don't know if you've looked at our social media, but on our Instagram, it's very much directed towards just like, what are we doing in the state? We're having fun. We're lighthearted, beers for everybody, over 21. And so that's just what's important to us, is just kind of building that community pride, and not, looking at other states, but looking at our state and what we're doing. And we're doing a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, the community of it. That's what draws me in. I mean, really, we talked to Russ Tanner a few weeks back, and he talked about barbecue, and why he's drawn to barbecue is because you've got people that are into smoking brisket or ribs or whatever, and it brings people together from a community standpoint. It sounds like that's the same reason you're in that line of work of what you're doing.
It is, and beer right now is, everybody's seen the news where people are getting offended one way or the other about beer. And I've had people ask, like, you guys should push one way or the other. And we want to be very much an apolitical business, because we want everybody to drink beer. Our beer isn't red or blue. Our beer is it's green and cream. So it's made for everybody. And I think that's important. I think, the history of beer, beyond American beer, but European beer, the whole history of beer is community, and you're sitting around with somebody, and it's a time more now than ever. I think it's important for people to share beers together and to share these conversations, because as we get more and more divided, I think something as simple and as unimportant as beer, that's why it's important right now, because it's something that we can bond over, that we have in common, and not that we don't have in common.
People need a way to get separated from the dialogue that you see every day when you turn on the TV. Like, it is so exhausting, man. Like, so I really applaud that
because it's not real life. It's
no.
The things we write on Twitter and the things that we do. When you see that same person at a bar and you drink a beer with them, we're alike and we like each other. And there's 95% of the things we do have in common, and we do believe at the same. And so there's 5%. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why you're a great guest for Carry the Mat. That's really what we're about. And you're the first, brewery we've had on here. But I'm thankful to have the conversation. Real quick, you got to tell us about your Boykin Spaniel, and I want to hear about.
Yeah, so I was my last semester of college, I lived at home because I'm from here. I lived at home. It was my 5th year. I was only going to be here for one semester, so I didn't really want to do a lease. But I had this great job as a caretaker for an adult with Down syndrome, making good money, just hanging out with a guy who happened to have Down syndrome. But he was really one of my best friends in the world. He still sleeps over every other Thursday. I mean, 10 years later, we're still great friends. But for the first time, I had like a little bit of money in my pocket because I was living at home but still working and going to school. And so money wasn't going towards rent or these things, and I was eating mom and dad's food, and so I was feeling good. And it was right before college ended, and so I think my first month of that, I bought a new shotgun, a new set of golf clubs, and a Boykin Spaniel. And so I bought Goose from a guy who was a forestry.
All necessities, anything.
The essentials, yeah. And I still have all three today. It's still the set I play with, and it's still the gun I hunt with, and it's still the dog I hunt and just do life with. And so he was a forestry student here at Georgia. He was a grad student, and him and his wife just had a litter with their two family Boykin Spaniels, and Goose was the runt of the litter. And so we're coming up on 10 years together. He's really been a great dog. Sleeps right in the middle of the bed with me and Annie Kate. Has made his way all the way up to Glacier, Montana. Has retrieved mallards in Oklahoma and Arkansas, but most of the time he's just a dog that just lays on the floor. So
that's great. And talking about regional brands, like that's the official state dog of South Carolina.
Sure.
Right.
That's kind of a cool nod to them, to the cat, to them. But I had one unfortunately passed in September. Brownie, rest in peace. She was great. She did not hunt ducks, but she probably would have been a good something. Probably a good dog.
She would have been a good bird dog. She was smart.
Her for quail dogs, and then talking about.
Yeah. So I this was years ago. Copper's about to be 7 this month, and I had forever as a kid. I always wanted a hunting dog, but I didn't at the time. I say it now. I've got a golden retriever too, but at the time I didn't want a big dog.
Right.
So, all right. So doing some research, found out about Boykin Spaniels and started, just randomly calling these different breeders throughout the southeastern states. And I was like, dang, they're hard to get a hold of.
Yep.
You gotta know somebody. You can't just usually when a litter's ready, they're already claimed.
Accounted for, right.
Yeah, and so I called this one lady up in northern Alabama, and she's like, Tracy Boykins. It's a great breeder. And she's like, I'm so sorry. We don't have any available, but if something happens, I'll let you know. And this was on a Tuesday. So I'm just sitting around twiddling my thumbs, and then I get a phone call. It's Memorial Day that later that week on Sunday. I'm at the gym working out. My phone rings, and it's Tracy from the breeder, and she's like, the guy that was going to get the dog, his mom's not doing well, and he just doesn't think he has time to handle a puppy. I can send you some pictures of him if you want to see what he looks like, and I'll hold him for you. And I was like, no, don't worry about it. I'm on my way. And I left, went to the ATM, got $1,200 out, and drove to northern Alabama, picked him up, never saw him. I was in between names. I was like, do I name him Bailey? Do I name him Copper? And I get there and I pull up, and she comes out, and Copper comes running down the steps. And again, I didn't have a name thought of, it hadn't decided on it. And the first thing that came out of my mouth was, "Hey, Copper boy."
Oh,
he
that's
came
awesome.
up, and now he duck hunts with me. So I got that in common with you.
He wanted a small dog, and it's the biggest Boykin I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah,
he's 60 pounds now.
Dude, he's a beast, man. He's a stud.
Goose is definitely Goose. Come here. He's definitely a runt. He's still, 10 years old. He's still just 35 pounds. That's Goose.
Goose has got the same collar as
yes,
Copper.
sir.
Oh yeah.
You can see it. Liz wants to see. She's.
Oh my gosh, you do have the same collar.
Yeah.
I'll send you the Instagram. We've changed the handle.
Please.
We've changed my Instagram handle since starting the podcast.
Yeah, since we're into social media marketing now, I was like, Daniel, you got to change it.
It used to be Copper the Boykin. And dude, he got low-key Insta famous for a while. He got number 2 sports dog of the year in South Carolina Wildlife Magazine.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
He's got a he's on the back of a t-shirt.
Really? Is that on the back? What shirt is it?
It's one of those little brown dog apparel type companies.
No, I had the little brown dog hat.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, man. They're great dogs. I don't think I'll ever not have a Boykin. They're good dogs.
I'm right there with you, man.
Yeah, they're great. Man, this has been a good conversation. I want to transition to the game while we got you. Summer we're talking about good dogs. We're talking about cold beer. It's only fitting that we talk a little bit about baseball. The Braves are. I mean, I don't even know what they're up to right now. I mean, they're just rolling.
They're like 27 and like 4 in the last 50 days.
They're sitting at 60 wins right now. If they win today, they'll be at 61 before the All-Star break.
I don't know what the score is right now. They're playing the Rays right now, we're just going to jump into this game. I wanted Daniel and I were talking, and we'd like to discuss. We'll kind of kick it around. It's not really a game. I guess we'll just kick it around, and the topic is childhood favorite, baseball players.
Like influential dudes that, when you think of your childhood in baseball, like what are the 4 guys that come to mind?
Yep.
And if we have some of the same guys, that's fine. But Daniel, why don't you kick it off? This was your idea, so go ahead.
Yeah, I'll kick it off with my favorite player of all time. He's not a Brave. I do have a Brave on the list later on, but I guess for me, 6'10", tall glass of water, Randy Johnson.
Randy Johnson.
Yeah, dude piled up like over 300 wins, sub 3.3 ERA over his career. Just 10-time All-Star, just absolute stud. Also, I don't know if either one of y'all know this. Do either one of y'all know the first team Randy Johnson played for in the big leagues?
Was it the Expos?
Yes.
Yeah.
My God. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was. Yeah, the Expos.
Yep.
That would be. He's the most, like, when I was a kid, man, I was obsessed with Randy Johnson. Like,
I've got a Diamondbacks Randy Johnson jersey, and I'm like 6'7", and I kind of have a little back here, and so I've definitely been known for Halloween just to throw on a Randy Johnson fit. I'm not a lefty, but I definitely have pushed
I'm
it.
5'7", so there's that.
thank God.
That's hilarious. I'd have never guessed.
Somebody give this guy a baseball.
That's hilarious. You go ahead, Jake. What you got? Pick your.
Yeah, if we're talking to stay on an Expos theme, kind of grew up. I was always the youngest in baseball. I had a late birthday. I played up with my brothers, so I got put in right field a lot, especially early. Watching baseball, though, they played them, how many ever times in a year. I always liked unique players who could mash. So my favorite non-Brave ever is Vladimir Guerrero, right fielder for the Expos, later for the Angels. Just had a rifle for an arm, hit without batting gloves. Didn't have a strike zone. He just swung at whatever he wanted to swing at. His son is one of the best hitters in baseball now. But Vladimir Guerrero growing up is who I thought was the coolest guy. I thought his rookie card, he was it for me. And I always watched the Braves, but when they played the Expos, I tuned in extra hard growing up. So, to stay on the Expos theme, I'll go with Vlad.
I love it.
That's good. I'll start off with a Brave. I've got 2 Braves in my 4, 2 out of 4. But Dale Murphy was really the first Brave of my childhood. I'm a few years older than you, Jake, but Dale Murphy as a kid getting into, just little league, Dale Murphy was just a guy that was just scrappy and just always getting on base and always hustled. And the Braves really weren't great at the time, but Dale Murphy was the guy. He was the stud for years in Atlanta. And that was really my first childhood guy that I followed and, just kind of wanted his jersey, so to speak. He would have been the guy for me. So had to have.
Yeah, that powder blue number 3 is iconic.
Yeah, and my older brother, it really probably aligned more with my older brother. My older brother's 4 years older than me. So time-wise, his prime of his career probably aligned more with Bo, my brother. And so, but you're always, doing what your older brother does. So Murphy in our house is a big deal. So
I think number 2 for me, this guy, they call him the Iron Man for a reason. He played 2,632 games straight. without missing a game, which, I mean, if you think about that, that is absurd. Like, that's crazy. But I'll give this one a shout out to my buddy, my Maryland brother from another mother, John Cal Ripken.
Yeah.
Loved him growing up. I was lucky enough, my dad worked in the mortgage industry for his career, and he had different companies he was partnered with. And so it was like the sweet spot for me. I'm like 10, 11, 12 years old, those 3 years. And those summers, Dad took me to Baltimore with him on these conventions for the business. And we would always go to an Orioles game when we were there. So I got to see him play 3 times. And, as a 10, 11, 12-year-old, like, you're hook, line, and sinker. You're obsessed after you see a guy like Cal Ripken play. So
Yeah.
he's on my Mount Rushmore.
Okay. Another outfielder, and this is obviously major player, but also as a child, Nintendo 64 was my favorite thing. So King Griffey Jr., baseball, everything 24, just the swaggiest guy with the prettiest swing in Major League Baseball history. I think he was one of the clean guys in an era that wasn't always known for being clean. And I think if he would have just done what everybody else done, he would have been even better. But no, Griffey was awesome. I loved like his smooth swing, the backwards hat. Yeah, I'm a big Griffey guy, and that game, King Griffey Jr. Baseball, was I think one of the funnest video games of all time.
No doubt.
Yeah, I had Griffey as well, so I'll jump on that. I'll just, he'll be my next pick. But I think his swagger, a lot of the young players that you see now, Cunha comes to mind, that have that kind of same, a little bit more flamboyant. Griffey was smooth. He wasn't really flamboyant, but he just had that presence. He walked on the field and you're just like, that guy's just built to do what he's doing. And he'd steal bases as well. And he was so smooth. He didn't even look like he was trying very hard. He was just such a natural.
Yeah.
So it was just pretty cool to see him and his father, the camaraderie with playing, with your, around your dad a bunch. And that was cool to see. And he was just good for baseball. I think that's, and I think a lot of the young guys would tip their hat to him as kids. Although these kids, the guys that are blown up in the league now were born in like 2000. It's
like, crazy.
I don't even remember Griffey, but he's to me, iconic.
Oh, for sure.
He had the shoes. You mentioned the video game.
All of
but
it.
He was kind of the larger than life figure there in the 90s.
Yeah.
Like a Michael Jordan type figure that everybody wanted to be like. So.
Yeah, I hate that you had to bring up doing it clean, because my next guy didn't, but he's so iconic that it was just like mesmerizing to watch this dude play. But Barry Bonds,
Oh, heck yeah.
I mean, dude, just the best hitter of all time. I mean, just pure hitter. Like,
let him in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
let him in.
I mean, it's crazy not to. So I would have to put Barry up there. I don't think there's much you have to say about the guy. I mean, everybody knows, but he was just he changed like that era. I know it was a lot of needles and juice, but like they changed the game.
Yeah.
And they made baseball must watch TV, like where it wasn't always that. I mean, I remember just the I think it was the 2001, maybe the 2001 season. He had like 73 bombs. Like you were turning on ESPN every night that the Giants were playing just to see him hit them into was it McCovey Cove?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the best.
Well, the pitchers were juicing too. That's the thing. It's
right.
Like even, right? Yeah, it's like, can't we just cancel each other out? I do like seeing him in the old footage when he was with the Pirates,
skinny
before he blew up. But he's still doing work. I mean, you mentioned the best hitter in the game. I mean, rightfully so. I mean, he's still making great contact. And
his pre-steroid numbers are still Hall of Fame numbers. It's
no doubt. Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, he definitely hit more bombs because of it, but there's no doubt he was just really just a stud all the way around.
All around, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, my next can't be a kid of the 90s from Georgia without listing somebody from those Dynasty Braves teams. My favorite from that team is Greg Maddox. He hasn't stayed close to Atlanta post baseball, like post his playing career. I think he kind of does his own thing in Texas now, and he went into Hall of Fame without wearing a Cubs or a Braves hat. He just kind of went in. So I don't think he's always loved Atlanta as much as I loved him. But when I think about the 90, 95, 96, 97, 98 Braves, I think about an away Atlanta jersey. So it's gray with Atlanta, and then it's got the Maddox, 31 on the back. I just think he was awesome. That was a guy who, in an era of guys throwing it still so fast, he didn't have the fastest stuff, but he put it exactly where he needed to go. He hit the ball well. He fielded his position great, and almost was so confident in himself that even though it looked like he had no swag, I think he was full of swag. I think that Nike commercial of Chicks Dig the Long Ball with him, Smoltz, and Glavine is one of the best commercials ever. And so Greg Maddox will always be my favorite member of that Dynasty 90s Braves team.
Well, I'll tell you to piggyback off Maddox, because I had considered him when I was talking to my wife, Elizabeth, about it last night, because I do have a Brave on there. The first thing that came out of her mouth, she was like, Maddox. I was like, I know, but for certain reasons, I chose someone else. But I can't talk about it on the podcast because it isn't super appropriate. But next time you talk to John Gaines, ask him, we're in a fantasy baseball league. And this was like 2016, maybe. We paid $500 for John Rocker to come to our draft party. Told us some of the most epic stories about Maddox in the locker room. Dude had the swag. He was an animal.
Did it make you like him more?
Yes.
Oh, awesome.
He was a prankster, man. He messed with everybody on the team.
That's awesome.
So you have to get with Gaines. Yeah.
Yeah, Maddox looked like he was just going to sell you some life insurance, but he ended up he was a straight stone cold killer. Also it was hard to pick a pitcher. Just you mentioned, Smoltz, Glavine, Maddox. The 90s, even Steve Avery back in the day was one of my favorites. There were just so many good pitchers in Atlanta. Atlanta Brave I chose was Chipper. He was just, batting switch, I think, was something that everybody wanted to do, and he did it so well. And my uncle lives in Jacksonville, and so growing up, he would tell stories about Chipper coming up at bowls, just how athletic he was, and he played every sport. And Chipper, if you pay attention to him now, whether it's through broadcasting or, whether he's doing a podcast or something, he really talks about kids playing multiple sports, and he's a big believer in that. He's just has a lot of common sense, good application of the way he approached the game, and I've always enjoyed him just as a person too. So I like him, and just growing up playing ball, that was a guy that everybody I think looked up to, and he was just the kid, the natural. He was just the kid who was born to play, and it was just fun watching his career. And he's a guy that's loved Atlanta back. You mentioned Maddox maybe not being as passionate about the base as we were about him, but Chipper's loved him back, and it's been cool to keep him in the fray, so to speak, with the broadcast and all that. So.
Yeah, that's a great one. I considered him too. I think for my last one, he's my all-time favorite Brave for a lot of reasons. My late grandmother that just passed away, she and I bonded as we were growing up, over Braves baseball. That was she just knew. Mama Dot knew more about Braves than anybody. And her favorite player was Andrew Jones. And so I fell in love with him. The guy hit over 250 average for his career, which those numbers dipped later. When he was a Brave, it was higher than 2 whatever. He hit over 430 bombs, and arguably one of the best defensive outfielders ever.
Right.
Like, put him in the Hall of Fame. Hot take, I get it. The dude is a Hall of Fame.
Yep.
And that's my fourth pick. I love Andrew Jones. Will always love him. And
right before I got married, a bunch of buddies went to the Ivy in Buckhead, and we were just like having fun, kind of like a bachelor party. My wife always says I had like 4 bachelor parties before I got married. But Andrew was at the bar, and 27-year-old me, I'm an adult at that point, and I still couldn't help myself. I'd had a couple beers. I was like, I'm getting a picture with him. And so I have this great, silly bar picture of me and Andrew Jones that's still on my phone that I love.
So send that to us after we're done if you can dig it up.
Yeah, I will. Yeah. My last one, this one's weird. He did play for the Braves a little bit. He played for the White Sox. Didn't really have he was just a serviceable Major League Baseball player. But I loved him for another reason. In 2008, so I'm a junior in high school in 2008. I can drive. Me and my best friend Spencer go to almost every single Georgia baseball game that season. And that's the season that we lost to Fresno State in the national championship. But that whole season, batting third, playing shortstop, Gordon Beckham, comes up to bat. Josie's on a vacation far away. He's coming up. I mean, he was as cool as it gets when you're 16 looking at what a college guy's supposed to be. And so, yeah, I loved Gordon Beckham. He made that year really special for me. That's the last time I've really been a huge nut about Georgia baseball. But I had the opportunity a few years ago. ESP had one of our big fundraisers, Big Hearts. Gordon was a judge. And I've gotten to meet through ESP a lot of Georgia athletes, all the quarterbacks, Murray and Fromm and Eason and Stett. I've met all those guys. I've met, Todd Gurley, a lot of them. And David Pollock, nobody had me starstruck like Gordon Beckham. And I think my brain went back to 16 years old, and I got to shake his hand, and he lived up to it. He was super nice. Let me be weird about, dude, you were my favorite baseball player when I was 16 years old. And so it was cool to get to talk to him. And he's a really nice person. And I think he does some stuff with the Braves right now, kind of on our broadcast team a little bit. So, yeah, that was kind of a weird one, but I'm a Gordon Beckham guy.
That's great. I'm so glad that somebody like that made it into the lineup. Well, and that's a great walk-up song, too, by the way. We'll have to do that. And maybe next time we can have you on, we can pick our walk-up songs, theme songs.
Yeah. That would be Life's Been Good by Joe Walsh.
Ooh, that's a great
like that.
Yeah. Stranglehold, Ted Nugent comes to mind.
Oh, that's a good one.
I don't know. I could go a few different directions with that. But,
yeah.
My last pick for the this week's game, Tony Gwynn. I think every coach I ever had referenced Tony Gwynn, and he was just a guy that his style of play, just choking up on the bat, crowding the plate, putting it in play, just smacking around the field. Whatever he was getting, he'd dish it out to right field if he had to. Left field, he'd pull it. He just put it where he wanted to, based on where the pitch alignment was. And I think it was Smoltz who was being interviewed, and he routed off 4 or 5 Hall of Famers, and Tony Gwynn had a 450 average against those guys. It was just absurd how good that guy was at just putting the ball in play. And another guy that's just good for the game and just always been iconic, but it really didn't hit for power much. He just really just put it in play and hustled and hit a lot of line drives, and just a really smart baseball player. And I think any hitting coach is going to pull him up, and reference him.
Yeah.
Putting on a clinic. So that's my guy.
For sure. That's a good one.
We named some good dudes. That was good. I love the Vlad pick that you did. As soon as you said it, I was like, dang, I should have said Vlad.
I love that guy. Still do. He was cool. Yeah.
Well, Jay, this was fun, man. It was a pleasure getting to hang with you, and just appreciate what you're doing. I mean, I know y'all are what y'all are doing for the community. And you mentioned your roots with ESP. I think that's such a good marriage with what you're doing with Peach State Lite. And, now you're with a brand that's not a nonprofit, but you're still reaching the community in a different way and bringing people together. And I think we'll be sure to spread the word on Peach State Lite and be consumers, but also brand ambassadors, and that I turn others on to the Peach State Lite. But thanks a lot. You got anything else for us?
No, I really appreciate it. Like I said, I like what you guys are doing. I think this podcast is a lot of fun, and this was a nice little way to spend Sunday afternoon. I got the Braves are on. I'm not going to catch them after this, and then I'll be excited to catch up with you guys again soon. I know we're all in town. I'd love to meet maybe at the Old Pal and have some Peach State Lite.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
Okay, well, I'll count on it then.
Yeah, we'll be in touch, man.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jake.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank y'all a lot. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, man.
See you, man.
All right, see ya.
What's up, y'all? I hope y'all enjoyed our conversation today with Jake Sapp of Peach State Lite. Y'all be sure to continue to follow us on our platforms, Carry the Mat, and we look forward to talking to y'all again soon. Thanks.